Hey, we have a very special video for you today on Woodworking with Wes, inspired by a photo on the cover of Fine Woodworking Magazine. In this video, I have taken inspiration from the cover of Fine Woodworking Magazine to create a stunning traditional blanket chest. Built with American hardwoods and classic joinery techniques, this piece highlights timeless design and craftsmanship. It's more than just a project. It's the beginning of a cherished family heirloom. The first part that I'll be working on is the blanket chest itself. This is one of the sides. Here are the ends, and I've marked them already and have one of the sides already clamped up to our box joint jig ready to make our cuts. Our box joint jig that we made allows us to clamp the side panel. Because it's so tall, we want to make sure that we have a good hold on it. We're going to clamp each cut. And so let me go ahead and just go through and I'll make the cuts and we'll show how it looks. I want to link you to a video that we have done on how we set this up and how we are making our cuts. I'm going to go ahead and finish this out. Let's take a look at it when I get this side done. Okay, with our cuts made along the end of our face panel, it's now time to do our end panel with our corresponding cuts. Same way, we'll make our initial cut and use our pin to do our spacing. I'll go ahead and finish out the remainder of our cuts along the end, and then I'll put it together and show you how it looks. With the face and side put together, you begin to see how those finger joints really show off the details. After I used my box joint jig to create the fingers on our corner, I have gone back and done a little extra work. I have softened the edges with my router and drilled a hole in each one of the ends of my fingers that is going to be part of our fastening system. I want to show you how we do that. I have my 1/8 inch round over bit set up in my trim router. We're going to go the whole length of the outside. Now this is the outside of our panel. We're going to go down the outside of our panel. Then I'm going to show you, we're going to also do the inside of the panel, but only just the end of each finger. Let's do that first and show you. So the inside of each finger just gets the end of it, like that. Now let's turn it back over and let's show you how we do the outside. The outside we go around all of the edges, all the way down. With my routing complete, I now go back and sand all of my routs and clean up any burn marks that I might have so that I'm all sanded out. With the routs all completely sanded, I now am going to soften the corners of the ends of each of my little fingers. I'm just going to do that by hand. I have a piece of 120 grit sandpaper, and I'm just going to round off the ends of the little sharp corners, and I'm going to soften the end of the finger, and so it's going to end up like this. It'll have a nice, soft, hand-sanded appeal to it. With my routing and hand sanding all done, it's now time to drill the individual holes in each one of the end of my fingers. What I did, I made a little jig that helped me determine what the center of each of the fingers was. I didn't want to have to measure each time, so I just made myself a piece of scrap wood for a jig. I'll go through and mark each one for the depth this way, and then I made a little cut on the end. Let me turn it like this so you can see how that works. That fits on there like that and gives me a little point to drill. And I'll go through and mark each one of them like that. Then I'll just take my countersink and drill my hole just like that. I'll go ahead and get that all done. With all of the routing and drilling done, we're ready to see if this corner fits together and what it will look like. We'll stand it up like this. Okay. A screw will go into each one of our countersinks, and that is how we put the corner together, and each hole will be plugged with a walnut plug. Let's go that far. With everything sanded, it's time to put it together. We're using 1 5/8" screws. No glue, and it'll all go together just like that. A screw in each one of our holes all the way up and down. I'll be plugging each of the screw holes with a 3/8 walnut plug that I'm cutting with my plug cutter. Just like that. We have assembled the 4 sides of our blanket chest. I gave a clear coat of finish on the inside. We're not going to be doing a finish on the inside, so a clear finish on the inside will keep it nice and clean. We're now getting ready to put the little walnut buttons in our screw holes where our countersinks. So let's go ahead and we're just going to give a little drop of glue in each hole. Like that. Not much, just enough to glue in this button as we put it in there. And this is the way I like to do my buttons. I like to grab a hold of it with my needle nose pliers so that I don't smash my fingers with the hammer when I pound them in. And just like that. Let me go ahead and get a few of these put in, and then I'll show you how we clean them up. I had sanded the end panel with 150, and so I have put some 150 sandpaper in this block, and we're just going to sand off our button with 150. By using a sanding block, I make sure that when I get done sanding, I'm perfectly flat and level, just like that. The next part of our blanket chest is the base. The base is a 2-part base consisting of the upright part of the base, which is put together the same way as the sides of our blanket chest, and a plate. The plate will be put together in a picture frame type effect, and then the blanket chest itself will sit on this level right here. Let's go ahead and get our base all put together by making our picture frame and putting these pieces together. We'll put a round over edge on this. I have completed the base portion of my blanket chest. I want to go over and show you what I've done. Let's turn it over and show you what goes on underneath. Here's our base piece. Here's our plate piece that we talked about. And this is going to be the inside level of our blanket chest. This is a piece of pre-finished Baltic birch that will be the floor of the inside of our blanket chest. We attached our plate by putting some hanging cleats or some build-up pieces and nailing that on. We also put some additional build-up pieces to attach our finished floor on the inside. When I got all done, I drilled some holes through the top here. I drew a line. You can see my line that I drew. This line represents the center of the sides of my blanket chest, and these will be the screws that I'll attach the blanket chest portion to our base. And I'll screw from underneath where I brought the holes through and attach that all just like that. I have turned the box portion upside down and have it sit on the floor so that we can work on it. Now I'll take my base that we just talked about and I'll slide that in, and it fits right in here. This piece right here fits inside that box portion. Through our pre-drilled holes, we just put our screw and tighten it down. And that's all there is to it. We'll go completely around and tighten down all of the screws to anchor our base. Now that I have the base attached, you can begin to see how it's all coming together. I love the way the corner turns out. And the inside is nice and clean with the finish all done. That cherry grain shows up really well. And I just love the way those corners turned out. All we've got left to do is the top. Let's take a look at the top. I have the top all cut to size. It's 3/4 of an inch overlap on each side, and the back is flush. I have my 3/8 round over set up in my handheld trim router. We're going to give this route all the way around the front and both sides. And then on the back side, we're just going to do a hand round on the underneath side and then finish sanding it all the way. Okay, final sand with 150. With my sanding all complete, I'm now ready for the stain. We're going to be using a very special stain that brings out the beauty of the wood and gives it a nice warm feel. The stain that we're going to be using is Sherwood wiping stain. It's been tinted to the color Library Oak, which is a standard color of theirs. And we're just going to be applying it with a staining sponge very liberally. I like to apply my stain in a circular motion like this and rub it into the grain so that it gets that color good and deep into the wood. And then I go back and I wipe it dry with a paper towel. A soft cotton cloth works just as well, but I use a paper towel. That really brings that grain out and gives it such a warm feel to the color. Not a traditional red cherry color, which I personally don't care for, but it still has a nice rich color and rich grain look to it that I love in cherry. Okay, let's wipe that down. According to the instructions, Sherwood wiping stain needs to dry at least an hour. I always try to give it as much time as possible. We'll let it dry for a couple of hours for sure. And make sure you wipe off all of the excess stain so that only the wood that is stained shows through and not puddles of unwiped stain, because that's what you want, is you want that grain to really pop. Okay, all right, let's let that dry and get ready for a final finish. After my stain had dried, I sprayed a coat of sanding sealer, and I'm now getting ready to spray on our top coat. I hope you enjoyed this build. I did, and we're going to see you next time on Woodworking with Wes.